Hello, my name is Jesse Walter. This is another UDK tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to review some of the changes made to the lights from our previous tutorial. Also, we will be working on movers and creating an elevator to travel up the tower of our bridge scene. So, before we begin with our mover, let's talk about the lights. Now, I've changed the lights in here to be all toggleable lights for the interior. And I've moved this light fixture and the light off of this platform so that when the player steps on the elevator, for some reason the light was being blocked by his shadow and we were not getting a good view of the control panel. So a quick way around this was to just move the light out of the way. I also made some adjustments to its brightness. Another thing I've done is I've customized the material of these light fixtures. I will bring up this material. Drag this over here. Alright, so I've created a copy of that light fixture, placed it within my package, and then I changed this material. I'm going to do a search for the material. This is the original material right here. And so by double clicking, we open up this material. And if you don't know a whole lot about materials, that's okay. I'll just quickly tell you what I've done here. We're going to go over materials in more depth later. But this light bulb in the art here is emissive, which means it's emitting light. So from the material diagram here, I went ahead and I just broke that link, and we see the difference already. I'll plug that back in to the emissive. When we break this emissive node, it changes the light that emits from that material. Now I'm not going to save this because I've already done this, and this is the original material. But before I had done that, like I said, I had saved a duplicate of that mesh, but I had also saved a duplicate of the material in my package. So if we open that up, and as you see, it's the same material. The emissive is just not connected. And then I found, as I had stated previously in another tutorial, that sometimes the materials were not staying on the mesh. I had to drag the material from my package and then drop it onto that mesh and all the other meshes. Another thing I had to do, because I wanted to be able to turn on and off that light, but not just turn on and off that light, but change that material, I had to change that mesh to an InterpActor. By changing it to an InterpActor, it allowed me to change that mesh without any problems or errors. And I had done this through the Kismet using this trigger. And I will open up the Kismet. And here's our Kismet. Now if you recall from the last video, we had all of these lights here were connected to the toggle. and these were the light bulbs. These do not exist anymore. I took them out. So when we touch the trigger, it toggles these lights on or off. It also switches that red and green. And that red and green can be seen, switch to game mode, right here on this controller. So next was the need to change that material. So by default, I had placed the material, my custom material, onto all of those light bulbs or these light fixtures. And we'll go around here and you'll see they're all shut off. I just didn't like how when we turned the light on and off, it still emitted light. So basically I'm just adding on to this touch toggle. And to kind of simulate and duplicate the work I did here, new action, switch. And I need more than one link. So I went into the properties of the switch. And we have 2 for a link count. Plus it's looping. Now if you don't click this, when you toggle on and off after it switches between the 2 links, here and here, it stops switching. But you want it to loop, you want it to continue. So make sure that checkbox is checked. Next thing we needed was this set material, and that's under actor. So new action, actor, set material. Okay, so we need a second one, new action, actor, set material. And then I link them. Here and here. And I took this out and I placed it here to the switch in. So we've gotten that far. I'm going to go ahead and delete these. And in the first material, or excuse me, the first material is this guy down here. I set that material to the material that had the emissive light. So to do that, we select that material from our content browser and we hit this little green arrow and that drops it right in there. Some other things to keep note here is material index. If you have more than one material on a static mesh or an object, that index will determine what layer that material gets set on. So you need to make sure that we have that on the right index. For example, we'll pull up the properties here. Actually, we want to find this static mesh. Let's go find this. Alright, here it is. If we open up the properties of the static mesh, that 0 that it's referring to is this element 0 right here. So if we had an additional material on this static mesh, it would have the bracket 0 bracket and then its properties, and then below that it would have a bracket 1 bracket. And we basically do the same for our other material, except we're using the custom material, the dark. We place that into this field, and it's sitting on the same index layer. Next thing I did was I went ahead and I put all these InterpActors, which are our light bulbs, or light fixtures, excuse me. So I went through the level and selected, holding control, each of these objects. And then I right clicked and clicked on this new object vars using InterpActors ... This dropped all these objects in here. Then I connected each of these objects to each of these set material nodes. Now I had to kind of play around with the link order in which these materials were set. I had to make sure that that material initially was set to the dark or off state, so that when you do click it or touch the trigger, the first switch link switches it to on. And to make this easier to understand, I can just simply drag that up here and pull that down there. That might help make a little more sense for us. It's also good to take notes. In my notes here I stated that these were converted to InterpActors. To convert a mesh that's already in the scene to an InterpActor, basically click on that mesh, right click, and should be replaced with, I think, replace with add InterpActor : your package name and mesh name. If you click that, that'll turn it into an InterpActor. Now, why do we need it to be an InterpActor? UDK likes to use these InterpActors in order to allow you to create objects that you can interact with. Like our mover will be an InterpActor, but it's also a mover. So let's test this out. Now we'll need to rebuild lighting, but I'm not going to do that just yet. We're going to move on to the actor. We see the lights are off, and now the lights are on. Much better than what we had in the last video. Turned off and on. Alright, so let's move on to making our elevator. Go back to unlit mode. Each of these objects I converted to InterpActors. And they're all located right here. So next thing I did was to create a trigger right here next to this control box. And then I open up Kismet, and I've already created this elevator, so we're going to open up the sequence. So you can organize your Kismet by using sequences. To do so, right-click, create new sequence object, give it a name, and then double-click on that sequence, and you'll have a new workspace for specifically that area or whatever that Kismet objective that you're working on is. So I'll just go over this. I left these here just as a reminder to myself. These are variables as to which ones I was using for the movers. Instead of using just a plain old trigger, right, the touch like the other controller that we set for the lights, this time I want to have some interaction with the player. So they'll push the E button to activate the elevator. So they have to manually activate this. So in order to use that type of a trigger, we right click in our work area space. New event using trigger 1 and used. Okay. And since I want all players, including my bots, if I put bots in here to be able to use this, the variable that I'm going to use would be player. Now all players, and I connect that to the instigator, like so. By default, it drops into all players. Now you can limit that by unchecking this checkbox and then setting that player index number. We're going to use all players. So I'm going to move this out of the way. So we need a matinee. So right click, create matinee. Now there are other ways to do this, and I'll show you a more simple way of getting your mover in here. But since my objects here, if we look at the local coordinate system here, look at the direction of my axis. My y-axis is pointing, or z-axis is pointing down. But on these meshes, it's pointing up. So I'm going to have to create two variable lists and group them together in order to move all these objects simultaneously. Now I've tried to create groups with this, and I've also tried to create a prefab, but it messes up the settings of the InterpActors and the way Matinee and Kismet interacts with it. So this is the solution I found to allow me to move all these objects at one time. So it's a little bit more complicated than a straight up regular UDK mover where you're just dealing with one mesh and you're moving it. When you're moving multiple meshes, this is a good piece of information to know. And of course, when we use this, we're going to be playing the matinee. A new mover, physics mover. And of course, it created the matinee with it. We'll just get rid of this one, I guess. Doesn't really matter. Now, why I'm going to have this mover in here is just really for one purpose. The pawn attach, I'm going to connect the instigator to players. So the pawn attached says if you step on that object, that mesh, then it's going to play the matinee. And then when it finishes, it's going to reverse and then hit actor to change direction. That's what I'm going to keep. So I'm going to get rid of these guys. Right click, break all links. Because we're only going to move or activate that elevator when we interact with it with this trigger. This mover changes direction. It's just something nice to have when you have a player underneath that elevator. Now we're going to add some variables in here. So to do this, open up Matinee. And this is our Matinee window. This is our curve editor, and this will be our timeline down below. And we're going to set this, I think I have this set to about 11 or 15 seconds, something like that. So I am left clicking and then moving my mouse, which moves this editor left and right. Dragging the timeline by clicking on this little red icon down here. I'm scrolling out by using the middle mouse button. I'm actually going to shrink this down a little bit. So yeah, 11 seconds. Now this is your mover timeline. I'm going to move that. The red is your maximum timeline. Pull this back to the beginning. And first things first, we're going to drag this over. And alright, so I have tower elevator, and I have the two parts. I'm going to shrink this so we can see. Alright, so here's the base of the platform. This goes in the opposite direction. Here are the rest of my InterpActor meshes. So we start with, I want to start with the second part, the lower part. No, not that one, this one. Because this is what we're going to be moving up. And I'm going to bring this down. Here we go. Move this to the side, but just know that I'm using the layers window to help me select my objects. Go back into Matinee. Pull this around here. And it's hard to see, but we have our timeline right here. You can hit enter to add a key, or you can click this icon up here in the corner to add a key. So I'm going to add that first key. Oh, well, before we do that, we need to add a group. So let's add empty group. We'll call this tower elevator A. And right click on that group. We need movement track. I want group, new empty group. Tower B. Right click, mover track. Alright. So we'll close this. And now we'll see we've got our two plugins for the variables. Now it's only accepting one, and I could go in here and create this huge list like I have right here and plug them all one by one. But a much easier way is to use the sequence variable object list. So I'm going to delete this. Right click, we want variable, new variable, object list. Okay. And we're going to want two of these. Variable, object list. And what I did to make this easier is we'll tell you what, let's move this off to the side. Bring this over here. Alright, so if I click on this object list, we see sequence var object list here, and by hitting the plus button it adds a new item. So I created however many I needed here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And we're starting with 0, so we need to go to 10. We can increase this. To make it easier for me, I just went through keeping this organized, copied this object value from this variable, click back onto here, and pasted right into this field. Went back through here, copy, paste, oops, let's paste. So I went right down through this list. So that list is done. Next, we do the same for this other list. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And paste. And that list is done. Next, connect each of these variable lists to the Matinee. Alright, so once we have those connected, we're going to open up Matinee. Let's kind of shrink this down. Shrink that. Make sure we grab our actors. Okay, so I'm going to move this off to the side. I'm actually going to move my Matinee off. Okay, so as we can see, we have selected our actors. And we know that they're movers. We know that we are in Matinee because right up here in the corner it says Unreal Matinee. We've got these little dots on here. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that we're on this section here. And grab these guys. Sorry, I've got dual screens here, so I'm kind of moving things off to the window on the other side of the window there. So select all these guys, and we're going to go ahead and key their attributes by clicking this key button here. Alright, they have been keyed, and timeline had adjusted itself, so we're gonna, well, let's just go ahead and move it for now. Let's go to, say, 2 seconds up to that first floor. I'm going to move my mouse or my camera. I'm going to grab this arrow here and we're going to move it up to about right there. And then we're going to key that movement. So if we play this, we can see our elevator already starting to take shape and form here and work. I push play. Oops, sorry. Do this again. Let's go back. Press play. And that's going to move it up there. Now we want that elevator to pause for a few seconds. So at that location, I think I don't know, let's see, maybe give it about 3 seconds. Maybe 3 to pause there. Set that key and move our overall time out, and we're going to do 2 more seconds. So at 6, let's take that all the way out. So at 6, and actually that floor, that should actually take longer. That's about I can tell I'm looking at how I modulated this fencing in here. So 1 is 2 seconds. So here's 1 space. Here's 2 seconds. This next fence layer is 4 seconds, and 6 seconds. Yeah, let's do about 6 seconds. 6 seconds to get up here. So from 4, we're looking at 10 seconds total. Move this out to 10, and then we're going to have it sit for about 3 seconds. So let's move this to 12. So from 4 to 10, and it's going to sit here at 10. Move this off to the side. Let's go ahead and move our elevator up. Alright, so we need to grab it from here. We'll move that up. Move it all the way up. We gotta go up 1 more. Grabbing it from that blue. Upside down Z-axis. Take a look here and make sure that's going to line up. I think that'll be pretty close. We're going to try that. Make sure I grab. Alright, unselected those. Make sure I grab all these guys. Bring this back over. Let's key that. And then we're going to leave it here. Key it again. So now, if we play this, we can watch it. There's that first floor. And there's the top floor. It's going to sit there, and then what we'll do is we'll tell Matinee to reverse it when it reaches the end of that cycle. Okay, just like that. And for completion, we're back here in Matinee. For completion, we're going to go ahead and tell it to go to reverse. And now we want to grab these other InterpActors. As soon as I find my screen here. Okay, so, and we're going to match that timeline. So we're going to make sure we key that. And we're here, key, set that primary key, and we can see that it's on this elevator B segment. And then we're going to kind of eyeball this at the moment. Go here, grab our arrow, move this up with it. Try to be consistent as much as possible. It takes a little finessing a little bit, but it looks pretty good to me. Let's see, right about like that. Alright. Let's key that. And we're going to leave that right there. We're going to key that again right here. And then we're going to move this right down here. And see our elevator went all the way up. So let's continue, move this up. Grab that Z-axis. Just bring it right on up. I'm going to get down here and kind of eyeball this. I'm kind of looking at that seam right there. Key that, and then we're going to key it right here too. And that may be a little bit off, so what we need to do is we're going to click on this key here. This is at 10 seconds. If I right click on that key, I'm right clicking on that top key, set time, and it's set to 10:04. We're going to make this exactly 10 seconds. Click OK, and then we're going to click on that key down below in the other group, right click, set time, and we see it was off, so 10 seconds. We want those times to be exact. And set time on this one, we're going to do 4 seconds. Same with this key down below, set time, 4 seconds. Just make sure that they all match. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. 0 and yep. Alright, that looks good. So now, if we sit up here from the top and we just watch, It's going to kind of make this small. Press play. Everything looks like it's coming up all simultaneously. Not much movement at all. And if we reverse it, we'll follow that down. That looked pretty good. And that is really all there is to creating movers. Okay, so I've had to replace this trigger, simply putting out deleting it and adding a new trigger, and then reconnected it back up from use to Matinee and Instigator to all players. Something to keep in mind here is on the trigger count, that number there, 1, is how many times that trigger will work when you activate it. 1 time. So if we put 10 in, it'd be 10 times. 2, it'd be 2 times. But if we put 0, that will activate the trigger every time you use it. Another thing is the retrigger delay. In order to, let's do a 1 second retrigger delay, and enabled. So in other words, if you hit the trigger, you cannot hit it again for at least 1 second after that trigger's been activated. But that trigger's not really going to do much anyway, since it'll be running through its full cycle first. And that full cycle, as we know, is what, something like 11 minutes or 11 seconds or whatever. So let's see here. I think that pretty much covers it. Let's close that. We're going to save. And you may have to adjust this trigger size-wise to fit the play most comfortably. I press play. Press E. Yep, I'm going to have to adjust that trigger. Okay, that works just fine. We'll go back down. Let's see if we got enough time to get off on this other floor here. Try this again. I may go back in and readjust that time, but for now it's okay. Let's jump down here, test it as it comes back down, and see if it goes back up when it hits the player. And it did not. Open up Kismet. Let's see. You know what, that could be creating some problems with this. Break this link. Hit actor, change direction. Let's save it. And that trigger also just needs to be adjusted some more. Amazing. There we go. So that's that. That's putting together our mover. There's a few things missing here. Sound, and we will have to cover that. And alright, so to really kind of help sell this, help it come more alive, is we're going to need to add some sounds in here. Otherwise it's still going to be kind of boring. Yeah, it moves, it's cool, but we need some sounds. So pull up your content browser. Look under UDK game. We're going to use whatever's built into UDK. Click on the sound cues checkbox, and I already know which one I want to use. You can go through here and listen to the various sounds. To kind of help you find the right sound you're looking for. I want the message beep cue, and so now that we have our sound cue selected, bring up Kismet. So we're going to right click, new action, sound, play sound. I'm going to drag this used right into here. Now, two ways you can do it. You can have it play the sound, and then as soon as the sound is played, it goes out and runs the matinee. In this case, it's going to be played just as soon as you hit the trigger, and the elevator will move along with it. And then with play sound selected, right here under this sequence act play sound, click play sound. We just add our sound into this field. And if we close this, test this out, and our sound works. I'm trying to hit E again. It's not going to reactivate until after the animation is done playing. Now what about the sound of the elevator going up? For that, we want to find another sound. Let's bring up your content browser, clear out your field, and UDK already has elevator sounds, so we're going to use those. Alright, so it's got a stopping sound, it's got a looping sound, and open start cue. Alright, I'm going to use this loop cue. And we want that to play only while the elevator is moving. Alright, so I have my elevator looping sound selected. Go into Kismet, right click, new action, and we want sound down here. And play sound. And we will from the time that we click the button, we will play the sound, add the sound here, and then we're going to add another sound, new action, sound, play sound. And when this matinee completes it reversed, and then on reverse we're going to tell this sound to stop. That's that looping elevator sound. When that elevator sound stops, we're going to tell it to play another sound, and that sound is going to be the sound of the elevator hitting the ground. Which will be this cue here. So elevator 01 underscore stop cue will be our next sound. So if we test this out, hit enter, or excuse me, hit E. Our elevator sound has started. And there we go. So that is how you build your elevator or your mover, and also incorporate sounds and audio. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you in the next video.